Thank you. Thank you. What a lovely, warm welcome. I'm so happy to be here, and what a big, nice turnout. Thank you for not showing me up. Well, I'm just, honored to be here to speak at the Clinton School. And where is the First Lady of Arkansas? Oh, thank you so much for honoring me in this way and coming to hear me speak. I appreciate it. And to all of you as well. I've had many people say to me, oh, I wish I had your life. And I say, well, I was a victim of a violent crime. I'm a cancer survivor. If you want my life, you got to take the bad with the good. But as Eleanor Roosevelt once wrote, that we women never really know how, we're kind of like tea bags. We never really know how strong we are until we're put in hot water. So turning lemons into lemonade and pain into purpose has kind of become my mission in life and helps make sense out of the senseless. Nobody leaves this planet unscathed, and bad things happen to good people. There is now a person in this room that probably hasn't, in one way or another, been touched by something that has changed their life, altered it in a new direction, and a direction that they never anticipated going towards. And at that point, when life hands you a blow, you have to kind of let go of the plan that you were playing, because no one really has a crystal ball. We don't really know what's going to happen even 5 minutes from now. So we plan our play, we play our plan, and then someday, one Wednesday afternoon, we get sideswiped, and life as we knew it changes forever. And we kick and scream and cry and say, dear Lord, why me? Why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to my loved one? But then at some point, if you don't want to get stuck in being bitter and negative, you have to go on living. You have to pull yourself up and dust yourself off and play the hand that's been dealt you, and play it as courageously and elegantly as you possibly can, turning lemons into lemonade. So I'm a uterine cancer survivor. It took me 2 years and 8 doctors to get a proper diagnosis. I got in the stirrups more times than Roy Rogers. And every doctor that I went to, said something else was wrong with me. Ultimately, they all felt like I had a perimenopausal condition, which is, a kind of normal situation that many women go through, and it ain't gonna kill you. But all the while, I had uterine cancer. One doctor said that I was experiencing leg pain because I had restless leg syndrome, and I should drink gin and tonic before going to bed. And another doctor said that my stool changed because I was eating way too much spinach and should cut back on the roughage. And another doctor said my breasts were so hard because I had the breasts of an 18-year-old, which I do. But there I was with perky breasts in need of roughage, going to bed sloshed in some vain attempt to cure myself. When all the while I had uterine cancer. Doctor number 8 said, I'm going to give you an endometrial biopsy. Well, that was the very test that doctor number 1 said I was too young for. And me, like an idiot, I didn't say, well, what would that prove or disprove? I was just so happy to be too young for anything. In fact, that showed that I did have endometrial carcinoma, which is uterine cancer. And by the grace of God, I was still in stage 1, and a radical hysterectomy was my cure. Now, that is a difficult operation for any woman, but for one who had never had children like myself, it's a particularly bitter pill to swallow. And I went through that stage where I felt bitter and angry. Why did this happen to me? I would look at my body in the mirror when I came home from the hospital and the cruel red line across my pubic bone, and I was swollen and black and blue all over, and I thought, I'm never going to be what I was. My life is never going to be the same, and whatever plans I had and whatever direction I thought I was going in, I'm not going to go there any longer. And the cure for the cancer almost seemed like a punishment on top of a punishment. And I was angry at the medical community. I felt betrayed by my body. And I was very negative and feeling really low. I couldn't even lift myself up a single step without being in severe pain. And my parents came to stay with me to help me to recover. And my mom, who's my mother, is like flitting around the house, opening and closing cabinets, making lunch for our family and my cousin who was visiting from Las Vegas to see me. And, you know, I felt like I was the old woman and she was the daughter, because I was just not able to feel like myself, and I never thought that I would again. And as we were sitting around the dining room table having lunch, Cousin Susan was like talking a mile a minute, and all of a sudden, she starts choking. Now, I had seen someone choke in a restaurant before, and it's kind of always the same thing. They rise up quickly and, you know, start doing this. She's still holding her glass of white wine. And I, without taking a beat, jump to my feet and start doing the Heimlich maneuver, which I had never done before. And let me tell you something, it's not as easy as it happened on The Nanny. And this is a tiny woman, and I'm like doing this to her, and every single time the glass of white wine is spraying across the room. And my dad, who rarely comes up for air when there's food placed in front of him, noticed something was going on and says, "Well, what's happening?" And my mother, in a similar voice to mine, says, "Don't whip your stitches." When all of a sudden, a tiny piece of regurgitated poultry pops out of her mouth and lands on the floor. Well, we all gathered around to look at it. Mom reaches down with a big white napkin to pick it up, looks at it and says, "It's not even that big." And Cousin Susan, still gasping for breath, says, "Fran, you saved my life." And I really did save her life. But in a funny way, on that day, Cousin Susan saved mine. Because in that moment, I began to feel like my old self again. And I decided, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make something out of this. I'm going to have some kind of a positive effect. I feel like I got famous, I got cancer, and I lived to talk about it. So I'm going to start talking. And I started with writing a book. So what happened to me doesn't happen to other women. And when I went on my book tour, and the book was a New York Times bestseller, by the way, I realized that what happened to me has happened to millions of Americans all across the nation by means of misdiagnosis, mistreatment, and as a consequence for many, though fortunately not myself, late-stage cancer diagnosis. So I knew that the book was only the beginning and not the end of what now has become a life mission. And so the natural transition from the book was to start my own organization, the Cancer Schmancer Movement. Because as I began public speaking, I started to formulate ideas. And the people that were in the audience would rush the stage and say, "That's right, that's true. Why aren't we all getting diagnosed in stage 1 when it's most curable? Why did I lose my mother to, breast cancer because they didn't find it till stage 4? Why is this happening?" And so the Cancer Schmancer Movement began. And the cornerstone of the organization is stage 1 is the cure. Early detection is the cure. If you catch it on arrival, 95% survival. And the reason why we lose loved ones to cancer is almost always because of late-stage diagnosis, which in this nation is unconscionable. So how can we, I began to think, change that fact? Because that's the beginning of not having cancer ruin our lives. And so transforming patients into medical consumers became a key factor in the Cancer Schmancer movement. We put more time and energy into the buying, selling, and repairing of our automobiles than we do our own bodies, particularly when it comes to women. We go to the doctor, we're either intimidated by the doctor or we push it off because we have other things to take care of, family responsibilities. We're still subscribing to that Victorian sensibility. If you can grin and bear it, you must do so because your family comes first. Well, let me tell you, we at Cancer Schmancer say, if you put your family first, you're really putting them last because you're useless to them if you're 6 feet under. So when you feel something happening and it's not quite right, that's when what we call the whisper stage of the cancer. And what we all have to condition ourselves to do is to think, well, this could be nothing, but God forbid it's something. I want to catch it on the onset, right at the beginning, so I can stay alive and well for my family. It's a whole different kind of way to think. And familiarizing yourselves with those early warning whispers of the cancers that may affect you and the tests that are available. Because let me tell you something, they may not be on the menu at the doctor's office. All too often, there are key diagnostic tools that are not generally covered by many health insurance policies, and doctors decide that they're just not going to offer them, rather than give you the option of whether or not you want it. So you have to do your homework and know so that you can say, well, what about this? What about that? And what I always say to people is save your Christmas Club accounts for tests that your health insurance won't pay for. Because the best gift you can give your friends and family is a long and healthy life. So that's the first prong of the Cancer Schmancer movement. You know, when I started the Cancer Schmancer movement, it was me and like 2 other women, and I had to learn how to begin an organization. And I found out that you have an option of being a 501c3 or a 501c4 or both. Cancer Schmancer movement actually is both, which enables us to not only allow contributors to make tax-deductible donations, but that we can also be active as policy changers in Washington. And I'm very proud to say that we are very active in Washington. We have a loud voice there, and that's why we encourage people to join the Cancer Schmancer movement, because there's strength in numbers. And when we go to Washington and we march on Capitol Hill, that's what elected officials understand. How many people are behind me, figuratively, when I march down the halls of Capitol Hill? How many people are in this senator's district or state, that congresswoman's? So it's very important that we galvanize as one collective voice. Well, I went to Washington, and I managed to be very instrumental in getting past the Gynecologic Cancer Education and Awareness Act, the first of its kind in U.S. history, by unanimous consent, I might add, which means all 100 senators said, okay, friend, we're going to say yes to this. Now we have a new policy that we're starting to introduce to Washington, another bipartisan bill, which, by the way, is the most effective way to get anything done on Capitol Hill. And in my estimation, poor health is the great equalizer. It overrides all political and religious and nationality boundaries. And so our latest policy is the C-free bill. And this will invite manufacturers to prove at their own expense that by today's standards, they have a product that's considered carcinogen-free. And if they can prove that by a third party, then they can pay the government to get the C-free label, the carcinogen-free label, to put on their labels, and for a limited time. And so the consumer can go to the market and not have to go to MIT to understand what the ingredients list means. All they have to do is look for that C-free label and rest assured that they are buying a product that is not going to harm them or their family, which is our right as Americans. So we feel very bullish and optimistic that, God willing, we will have a second win in Washington and once again keep striving towards improving health in America, because at the end of the day, manufacturers don't want to kill you, they just want to sell you. Elected officials don't want to kill you, they just want to be reelected. And we, as Americans, can have our voices heard through our purchasing power, which, by the way, we can start exercising right now. Which brings me to the third prong of the Cancer Schmancer movement, which of course is prevention. Now, we presently live in a highly toxic world. Our lifestyles must be questioned now because the way we live is completely unsustainable. With 1 out of 2 men getting cancer in their life, 1 out of 3 women getting cancer. The children of today, for the first time in US history, has been predicted to not live as long as their parents did. And babies are being born pre-polluted with 200 to 300 chemicals found in the umbilical cord. We are on a slippery slope towards our own demise unless we do something about it. And for Cancer Schmancer movement, we feel that consumerism is the best way to get our message heard, because presently there are products in the marketplace that are available that are healthy for you to use. And the 3 areas to take note of is, what are you putting on your skin, your personal care items for you and your family? What are you putting in your mouth? What are you eating? Do you know if you eat a strawberry that's not organic, you might as well be eating a sponge soaked in pesticides? And what are you cleaning and gardening with? Because 90% of all cancer is environmental. And the most toxic place that we spend the most time in is, guess what? Our homes. And even though we don't have a lot of control over a lot of things, we do have control over what we bring into our home. How many chemicals are we using in a single day? Just personal care items for women before they walk out the door are at least 12, and most of those have toxic ingredients in them. From the lead in the lipstick that we put on our lips, to the moisturizer, to the sunblock, you name it. Men using, triple X antiperspirant. The perspiring is the most effective function the body has for detoxing. And yet we make it prohibitive for the body to do that. and we wonder why we're getting breast cancer, and more men are getting breast cancer. You wouldn't do that to a dumb animal. Smear something on its body to prevent it from doing an essential body function to keep it well. But yet we mindlessly do it to ourselves. We've gotten so far from our natural state of being. We've come so far from being a part of nature, being a part of the earth and the air and the water that is essential for us. The earth and everything in it, including ourselves, is one huge living organism that is codependent on everything else to function at an optimum. And then, of course, when we stress, and we do live in stressful times, we let that get the better of us instead of equating it to the fact that the minute you start stressing, you're compromising your immune system. So when you feel yourself, oh, I've had some aggravation today, you take 10 minutes and lie down and close your eyes and think pleasant thoughts, or learn how to meditate, or arrange flowers, or cook something, or take a walk, or take a hike, whatever it is that brings you peace. But you have to always be gauging your stress level, because compromising your immune system will cause you dis-ease. So what we don't know is killing us. And what we have to learn could fill the Clinton Library. But there is no time like the present. We stand on the precipice of a new dawn. And I think that we have it in our power to start changing the trajectory that we're on right now. Because here we stand at the beginning of this 21st century, a new millennium. And historically, visionaries take hold at the beginning of new centuries. At the beginning of the last one, women were marching to get the vote, to have a say in government, being more than half of the population. They challenged the way society was, and ultimately they won. Today, we have to use that vote wisely. We have to think about being more civic-minded, having more of a voice, making a difference on a local level, on a statewide level, and on a national level. The country belongs to us. Elected officials represent us. And as Jefferson said, the price for freedom is eternal vigilance. Once we get lazy, once we get apathetic, once we think that we don't matter, it doesn't count, it's over. And we are at a tipping point right now. So you can change, you can reduce your risk of cancer, you can live a healthier lifestyle. You can not accept that as time goes on, there are idiopathic illnesses that come with getting older. Dementia, diabetes, you name it. It isn't so. It's our lifestyle that causes that. We actually should not be living longer while chronically ill and addicted to prescriptive drugs. We should actually be living longer and be healthier all the way to the end. That is within our grasp. And I think that part of this whole journey that I'm on is being able to inspire people to move in that direction, to change their lives. Because once you start doing it, and you don't have to go nuts and say, oh, it's too much. Take what we call a Cancer Schmancer, the check, choose, and change challenge. Each time you go to the market, try something new. One thing. And it may not be the perfect replacement right away. You may have to try a half a dozen times until you find that perfect deodorant that's carcinogen-free, with ingredients that might have grown in your grandmother's garden, or that organic fruit or vegetable that tastes so much better, you won't even believe it. And gradually, slowly, you're going to be tipping the scales in your favor for a healthier, longer lifestyle. And go to trashcancer.org or cancerschmancer.org, because our latest program is Trash Cancer Program. And what we're doing is inviting people to throw a trash cancer party in their home, which is modeled off of the Tupperware parties, only instead of selling plastic, we're selling consumers on the notion of detoxing their home, of replacing highly carcinogenic items with safer ones, even homemade ones. You wouldn't believe what you can clean your home, how well you can clean your home with lemon and water and white vinegar and alcohol and baking soda. It's amazing. That's the basis of everything. And then all those, really strong fumes and smells, that's where the carcinogens play in. And we don't need them. And the more we stop buying them, the faster our message will get to manufacturers that we feel as Americans we have a right to be able to trust that the product that we're using, maybe a product that our mothers or our grandmothers used too, is not good enough by today's standards. And in so doing, they will change their, ingredients. They'll make things differently, because at the end of the day, all they really want to do is sell us. So I encourage all of you to go to trashcancer.org and cancerschmancer.org and learn more about how you can throw a trash cancer party and how you can share with your friends and family all the fun ways to detox your home. And we have a wonderful DVD that I am in and we produce that goes through everything from cooking to cleaning to personal care items to exercise and meditation to help you learn how to live a more toxic-free life. So just get out there and start. And for all the students of the Clinton School here today, I just want to say that I applaud you for your interest in getting into helping, working for the greater good, and public service. And I must say that I'm not glad I had cancer, and I don't wish it on anyone, but I am better for it. My life resonates in a way that it never did before, and I have a purpose to my life that I never had before. And so, sometimes when bad things happen to good people, remember that I said, sometimes the best gifts come in the ugliest packages. Thank you, and God bless.
We have time for a few questions, so if you would raise your hands and please wait for the microphone to get there so that we can have a recording. Yes, ma'am, right here, and we'll get the microphone's coming to you.
There it is.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. How old were you when you were too young for the first test, and how long was it before you were correctly diagnosed?
I was 40 when I was too young, and I was 42 when I got diagnosed. And typically, 3 out of 4 women that get uterine cancer are either postmenopausal or considered clinically obese, because carrying a lot of body fat increases the estrogen in your body, and the thing that the uterus hates is unopposed estrogen. So if you have increased estrogen and the progesterone isn't balancing it correctly, then you're at risk of creating a uterine cancer. But 25% of women are young and thin, as I was, and yet the medical community does not think that it's necessary to give all women, as part of their basic gynecologic exam, a transvaginal ultrasound, which is a much better diagnostic tool than the bimanual pelvic exam that they were doing at the turn of the last century. And is particularly in this day of obesity, there is no way that a doctor pushing down on your abdomen and feeling with his fingers is going to be able to tell if your uterus is a few centimeters off. But that would be a precursor to endometrial cancer. So having a transvaginal ultrasound is an excellent diagnostic tool that I would request when I went to the gynecologist. And by the way, for men that are checking their prostate, ask for a transrectal ultrasound, because the PSA blood test is actually not as accurate as that. And many times men will say, well, I just took the test and it came back normal. How could this be? 6 months later, I'm like, off the charts. Get the transrectal ultrasound. And for women that are showing symptoms, my symptoms was staining between periods, cramping after sex, classic uterine cancer symptoms. If you're a woman and you are having digestive problems, you feel bloated all the time, you're gaining weight, even as little as 1 pound a month, you may go to the gastroenterologist. You may be wrongly diagnosed for irritable bowel syndrome, when in fact you have ovarian cancer. There has been this misnomer that ovarian cancer is a silent killer. That's not true. The whispers tend to seem like irritable bowel syndrome, indigestion problems, bloating, weight gain. When I meet a woman and she says, I was just diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, I say, honey, I hope that's what you got. But for a moment, step away from your gastroenterologist, go to your gynecologist and rule out ovarian cancer, because unlike uterine cancer, ovarian cancer is very aggressive and it shoots seeds off and it spreads like wildfire. And you do not want to be misdiagnosed with that cancer, because 80% of most women with ovarian cancer will find out in the late stages, and over 70% of them will die.
So part of your education program is to teach women to look for the whispers.
Yes.
I also have a present for you. My daughter and I started an organization of our own that would give these filled with nutritional snacks to all chemotherapy
How
patients.
fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. You can give that to Billy over there. Thank you. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. I think there's a gal back there.
Hi, Ms. Fran.
Hi.
You talked about how doctors can sometimes be intimidating, and I completely understand that. I actually have a mother who's living with renal cell cancer right now. And I know sometimes I hate going to the doctor because of how intimidating the doctors can be. So, under Cancer Smasher, you said one of the things were education. So, I was wanting to know, do y'all talk about, like, to women and also men, like, what questions to ask the doctor?
Yes.
To make sure that you're getting that best care, make sure they're diagnosing what they need to diagnose?
Yes, we do. And on our first video, which is available on the Cancer Schmancer website, called the Cancer Schmancer Tea Party, I do talk about like at least 18 things to do when you suspect there's something seriously wrong with you, things that I learned the hard way. But going in with a list of questions that you start thinking about is very important. Going in with a friend or a member of your family who is not going to make it about them, who is not going to be freaking out, who is not going to be nervous or hysterical, somebody that's going to ground you, somebody that's going to sit there with the pen and pad and say, now wait a minute, how did you spell that again? Because I want to look it up on the internet when I get home. You're not going to remember everything. Your head is going to be reeling. Don't think that you can do this alone. You can't. One of the silver linings of my experience with cancer was I used to be a person that never liked to ask for anything. I was only comfortable giving, not taking. And this leveled me so far down to the ground that for the first time in my life, I thought, okay, I got to ask for help. I have to turn to people and say, carry me, I cannot do this alone. And that was a silver lining, because now I become a more well-rounded woman. I give, and I also take. And I don't deprive other people the pleasure of giving, because I was uncomfortable with it. Now I'm comfortable with it. And as far as, you know, the doctor that you go to and not being intimidated, you know, let me just say this, and if you take nothing home with yourself, think about these words. When the doctor calls and tells you you have cancer, at the end of the day, he goes home and eats dinner with his family while you go home and eat your heart out with yours. Whose life is it anyway? It's yours. So take control of it. Be a medical consumer. Don't be an infant with the doctor. They have a lot on their plate. They're bludgeoned by health insurance companies to go the least expensive route of diagnostic testing. They're under a lot of pressure to get you in and get you out. It's up to you to control your own fate, which way your destiny is going to go.
Dean DePippo, right back here.
Thank you for being here. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer 3 years ago at a very early stage and had successful treatment.
Good for you.
But as you know, there's a lot of controversy about early screening for prostate cancer, breast cancer, and now even ovarian cancer. So I wonder what you would say to people who are confused by what sounds like a mixed message about early screening and early detection.
There's no downside to early screening. There's no downside to taking advantage of the diagnostic tools that are available to us. I think that the idea of any controversy has more to do with big business health insurance than anything else. I don't think that if, for example, your CA-125 blood test indicates that there could be an ovarian cancer problem because the numbers are elevated, it means, oh my God, I gotta rush to have surgery. Because these are very delicate blood tests that aren't always as reliable. Actually, there's a 25% false positive, which is part of the reason why insurance companies don't offer it as standard gynecologic exam. But, you know, for me, if it's positive, then, you know, let me come back in 4 weeks and see if it's still the same. You know, there's a window of time that you can kind of evaluate what's going on. You have to keep a level head on you. Best medical practices have to be developed to ensure that every American will be diagnosed in stage 1 when it's most curable. And anything else is really unacceptable. And again, most people that die of cancer, and I'm sure everyone in this room knows of someone, is due to almost entirely late-stage diagnosis. That's completely unacceptable.
Questions? Is there a question? Yes.
Ms. Drescher, I probably missed it if you told us, but you didn't tell us how long you have been cancer-free. And would you please let the nanny tell us?
Yes, absolutely. I just celebrated 12 years of wellness. Thank you. June 21st is my anniversary of wellness, and you know, for me, that's the summer solstice and poetically the longest day of sunlight. So at Cancer Schmancer, we made the icon of the sun with the number 621 in the center of it, our icon, because it, you know, it holds great meaning to me. And you know, sometimes people say, you know, well, what are you doing on your birthday? And it's like, I don't even think about my birthday because my anniversary of wellness is my birthday now.
Right over here.
I don't know if you can understand me or not, but I love you.
Oh, thank you. I understood that.
But I've always had irregular periods.
Uh-huh.
I started when I was 9. But my parents would go like 6 months and not have a period.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll have one and go another 6 months. And like you were talking about feeling bloated all the time, I'll be hungry and I'll eat, and then I could take like 2 bites and I'm full.
Mm.
And then I get hungry again, take another 2 bites, and I'm full.
Now, how long has this been going on?
Months.
Months.
Months. But I am petrified to go,
Well,
to go to the doctor.
Okay, I hear you.
I am so scared.
Well, listen, you know, you can't be an ostrich. None of us can put their head in the sand and make believe that anything that may be wrong is going to just magically go away. All we can do is be extremely proactive, take control, you know, grab the bull by the horns and get diagnosed, if God forbid there's something wrong, as early as possible. I'm not a doctor, nor have I ever played one on TV. But I can say that if you're at all suspicious that you are suffering from a gynecologic problem, then you should go and you should insist on getting a transvaginal ultrasound, a CA-125 blood test, an endometrial biopsy, and a Pap test, all of which can be done in the office, none of which are expensive, and all of which are pretty non-invasive. But then you've covered all the plumbing. And what most women don't realize is when they go to the doctor and only get offered a Pap test, and they say, well, my Pap test came back normal. It's like, honey, that doesn't cover anything north of the cervix. Most women don't realize that. So the condition of our uterus and our ovaries go completely unattended, unless you happen to be pregnant. If you're pregnant, then they give you a transvaginal ultrasound. Then they start looking at your uterus. But otherwise, you're on your own, honey. And unless we start demanding this for ourselves, nothing is going to change. So I wish you luck, but don't, you know, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. You got to take control. Be a medical consumer. And whatever it is, you'll deal with it. But knowledge is power.
Abby?
Hi, my name's Abby. I'm a first-year Clinton student here. Thank you for coming. I feel like a wide perception among people my age is that idea that we're never going to get cancer. It's nothing we have to worry about. How do you particularly reach out to people my age or youth? And furthermore, what can we do with our energy to help spread your movement?
Well, that's, let's start with the last one first. You know, we actually have a youth movement called We the Future, and for Cancer Schmancer, which targets, you know, college-age students and younger. And I think that the misnomer that, you know, young people are going to live forever is a bubble that is fast being burst, because younger and younger people are getting cancer. Young men are getting testicular cancer, and that is on the rise. I cannot tell you how many young men come up to me and say, you know, I had testicular cancer. And women are getting a host of gynecologic problems and breast cancer. Now, it's what we're exposing ourselves to. The foods in particular that we are eating. which are loaded with hormones, hormone inhibitors, hormone interrupters, hormone enhancers. Swimming in a pool with chlorine creates an estrogen-like response in the body. Fluoride in water. We are so inundated with toxins that are affecting our natural body functions. And that doesn't even get into what's called electrosmog. That's the unbearable amount of radiation that we get each and every day from all the electronics that we surround ourselves with constantly, sleep with. So, you know, we have to start switching up our acts. Everything old is new again. Simplify. But to tell you the truth, you know, young people do have this unfortunate feeling that they're invincible. For every older person that quits smoking, which is probably the single greatest negative impact on all of our health, a young person picks it up. And, you know, if it weren't for that unfortunate, invincible nature that they have, there would probably be no wars, because who else would go? It's young people that think, oh, I'm gonna go and kick some butt and I'll come home. And, you know, the older you get, the more it's like, can't we talk about this?
Gentlemen, let's give Fran a wonderful round of applause.
Thank you. I'm going to leave you with a, make your reach greater than your grasp, else what's a heaven for? Thank you.